Lucas. This is the Niner Fanatic Podcast, and thank you guys for coming in. Thank you guys for watching. But before we get into anything, we got to hit the music. What up, y'all? It's Peter Lucas. This is the Niner Fanatic Podcast, and you can catch this on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere where you can get your audio podcasts. I don't care where you get it, just get it. And once again, we're going to talk about it. It's a slow kind of news cycle right now, but I want to dive a little bit deeper today into the trenches on the defensive side. And I've said in past on past shows, I've given a couple of names here and there and just a couple of suggestions that the Niners could go after. I really kind of dove deep into the free agent pool today, and it was surprising. I'll be honest with you. I didn't realize there were so many options, and there is quite a few options that really could fit the mold of the people that the Niners have traditionally kind of picked. Uh, including the guys that it's entirely an option that they bring back. Hey, what's going on, Damien? I appreciate you coming through. I know that there's a lot of options tonight, but I appreciate you coming through. Jimmy wants to know why any of his TDs I had to take them all down. He wasn't playing anymore. So it seems like, you know what, I don't know if I'm gonna put a quarterback in any more of my intro videos, because it seems like I did one for Trey, he got hurt. I did one with all Jimmy, he got hurt. And then I do one with Brock, he gets hurt in the NFC Championship game. Maybe I'm the curse. I don't want to put that out there, but it's I'm gonna redo the intro probably again, like halfway through the off season, and we're gonna see what I can come up with and how I can keep our guys. I don't want to make it like a Madden curse or anything, but the it's it. But getting back to the point, it was just there's a lot of guys that are going free agent for the 49ers on the defensive line. There's also there's a lot of free agents and a lot of similar type guys that went first round, and they're kind of just being cast off by their teams for multiple issues. There's some that are getting cast off because they've been disappointments. There's also more that have been cast off because they how do you put it? They're not so much cast up, but they're just kind of salary cap casualties. They know that they're going to cost too much for them to bring back, so they don't want to fit a $7-8 million hit on their cap. So they got to go, and they try again elsewhere. But who benefits the 49ers, because the 49ers seem to always find these guys that on the kind of the scrap heap, per se, that with Chris Kasurik as your defensive line coach, he can turn anybody's trash into his treasure. So it's going to be an interesting free agent period, because there are so many options, as little options as there were for I did another show for the offensive line. It is a plethora of options for the defensive line. And really, the 49ers, I mean, there's all kinds of different types of defensive linemen out there. You got your tweeners, you got your defensive tackle. There's a ton of what I feel the 49ers need at the defensive tackle position. There's a ton of those guys. And And then even defensive end, I found a few that might be that might they might take a chance on just because they're going to be a little bit cheaper of options. I'm purposely not going to bring up uh Javon Hargrave and the other guy from the Commanders. And I'm blanking on his name because I don't even want to mention him. Like the but the reality is I don't know that the 49ers want to pay that much. Like both of those guys are going to get anywhere from 16 to 20 a year, and the 49ers are not going to pay that for defensive tackle. Not the way that they've been able to find gems uh, in the draft and in free agency that are low cost options. They're just not going to do it. I can't. And having Chris Kasurg, I just can't see it. Like I hate to rain on anybody's parade. Like hopefully you guys don't leave the chat. But I'm going to mention. Speaking of the chat, I'm going to mention a couple of guys. Bryant, appreciate you coming through. I saw you on Mariah's show. Big up to Ryan and 49 Faithfully podcast. Big up to Jesse. I saw he's broadcasting also. I saw a few other people broadcasting tonight. Big up to all the Niner content creators. We we have a great community, and but I appreciate y'all for coming in and hanging with me for a few minutes. So I promise I won't be long, like some of these other shows. But the Damien says do a video, Kyler Murray. Like yeah, I don't even want to talk about Kyler Murray, but that's a whole nother dumpster fire over there in Arizona. But the he says I agree. If you did mild videos on the NFC West, I think it would help casual not 49er fans. You know, that's something that I will be talking about in the offseason. I did it last year. I have a buddy of mine that I occasionally do shows with. He doesn't really have a social media presence, but I call him no social media Nate. And he's he's uh he's we've known each other since we were kids, and he's a Ram fan, so we talk NFC West, and it usually ends up for a great show. I feel like we have really good. I mean, just because we've known each other for so long, and I'm a 49er fan. He's and we call our podcast the Odd Couple Podcast. But we haven't done it in a while. Nate doesn't really have a lot of spare time, but every now and then you're going to see Nate in and out of the show. So keep a lookout for that. Yeah, NFC West opponents. I saw Brian said, and Damien says like Marcus Davenport on the edge or Jadavian Clowney. I didn't mention those guys either because the reason being Jadavion Clowney is not what I consider a reclamation project at this point, and he doesn't seem to fit the 49er mold. 49ers look for guys that are a little selfless, a little they're not looking out for themselves. I feel like Jadeveon Clowney always makes up excuses of why he doesn't put the production in, and he just is never produced. Even though he's played on some really good defensive lines, he's never been a killer like that. So that's not a guy that I'm looking to bring in on the 49ers. We need a killer, a silent killer, one of those guys that nobody expects to blow up and just ends up blowing up because he's playing next to Bosa and Eric Armstead. But Marcus Davenport, I mean, I think he's coming off of an injury. I don't know if the 49ers are going to want to go that route. Like, because with all the injuries that they've had, I think that they're trying to stay away from guys like that, unless it's just such a cheap and a good deal that they bring him in just to see what it is. So that somebody's going to pay that man. And I don't think it's going to be the 49ers. But Brian says we have a great community. We absolutely do. 49ers, content creators. I mean, the guys at the top, Grant, and you got Sprint Ride Option. I mean, you got John Chapman. You got all these guys, Breezy, Niner. I mean, I could keep going on and on, and I should be promoting my show more, but we have such a wealth of knowledge and so many different perspectives. That's what makes the 49er content creator so good, is that you can watch all of our shows and get something completely different out of all of them. So I that's what I think at least. Like that's why I watch all of them. Melissa's in the house. Appreciate you coming through, fam. What's up, Peter? We'll watch back later. Have a great show. Appreciate you coming through. I know you watch Mariah. Um, but let's get to it. Because like I said, I'm trying to do more shows, little shorter in length, so that I can get as much content to you guys and more frequently. And but I want to start with the defensive tackles because I think that's the spot where that the 49ers could use help the most. Because Javon Kinlaw, we're going to talk about it. Javon Kinlaw, they're not going to pick up his option, his 5th-year option, and I think after this season he's probably not going to be here. I mean, it is what it is. Like we all know why that is. Unfortunately, he just has really bad knees, and it's going to be really hard for him losing so much weight that he did in the offseason. I think it took a lot of his power away, and it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and plus, when he lost that weight, I think that now puts him out of position because now I think he has to be more of a 3 technique, and they're trying to make him a 1 or a 0 technique, and like that's just not going to work. So it's he just doesn't have the power to anymore to not get thrown around in the trenches. So unfortunately for him, for Kinlaw, that's I don't feel like that's going to work. Who knows what the 49ers do, but and they may keep him around, who knows, but it won't be for any expensive amount. That we'll say that. And then the other guy, Hassan Ridgeway, who was playing actually really well this season. He's a free agent. I don't because he got injured in the middle of the season. I don't think he's going to command a high dollar. So I do expect them to actually bring him back. There's a couple of guys that I expect them to bring back. I want to see Kevin Givens back. Maurice Hurst, I don't think comes back. This is his 2nd year of being hurt. And so I think they let him walk. Like that's my personal opinion on it. But um oh, Brian, appreciate you, brother. He says, your shows are great, just hard. Lots of people streaming. Yeah, we know we got we got a ton of 49er content creators, but I appreciate y'all rocking with me. And I hope that you guys can take something from my show that you don't get from the others, and that's because that's really what we're going for, right? So, and Damien says, we need Kinlaw to be that bully like he was to Grant. Yeah, man, we need to see Kinlaw chokeslam some people. Let's just be real. We thought we were getting a beast, and unfortunately for him, he seemed like a beast to Grant. But Grant's a tiny guy. And the guys that we needed him to be a beast to were throwing him in the 3rd row in the NFC Championship game. I don't know if anybody saw it, but I mean, he was getting thrown around like he wasn't there. So it is what it is. But I don't know if it's a technique issue, if it's he's just out of position, but I just don't see it for Kinlaw. That's just my personal opinion on it. Uh, do I think that? And Brian says, do you think Kinlaw injured his knee in the interception return? You know what? I think that he's had these issues since college. Like he was that I mean that was the report out on him then, was that he was going to have injury issues with his knee. He was going to have problems with his knees. And that which is makes it really surprising that the 49ers decided to pick him there. I think they felt the pressure to have a blue chip guy um replace the guy that we lost in the trade. And why I never can remember his name. It's like he just fell off the face of the earth. But whew, man, I can't remember his name for nothing. But the whole reason behind it was, that guy was all world, and he had hard like he had really heavy shoes to fill, and he just couldn't there was no way. It was going to be hard for him to fill them anyway, but then to have arthritic knees to begin with, and then you're weighing over 300 pounds on those knees, it was a recipe for disaster, and that's just the reality. So DeForest Buckner, thank you, Damien. I don't know how I forget DeForest Buckner's name, but DeForest Buckner was, I mean, that guy was a killer, and he was a leader. And to expect Kinlaw to come in and replace a guy like that, it was just doomed from the beginning, because he was not that type of player coming out of college. And I know that everybody wanted to think the best of him, and we rooted him on, and like, because he was working hard. Like, it just didn't work out. Like, unfortunately, it just didn't work out. So it is what it is. He said, was Kinlaw a Trent Baalke pick? He was not. He was a Lynch pick. I know. I don't know if that was a joke because the the it you would think, because Baalke loves his injured guys, but anyway, like, we're gonna get to these defensive tackles, and the first one I want to start with, yeah, Lynch definitely drafted Kinlaw. Just so we're clear, that he was drafted what, 2020? Yeah, I think he was drafted 2020. So, or 20? It was right before the 20 season. So, the reality is like, so we've got a whole plethora of defensive tackles that are going to be available. It looks like Dalvin Tomlinson for the Vikings is going to be available. That is my number one. My number one. For the thing, the big thing is that first off, he's 6'3", 325. So him being 325 pounds, he's steady. He stays healthy. Like, he plays the run and he can rush the passer. But he's more of a run stopper, which I think is what we need. Like, for those early downs, he's only slated to make $8.5 million. The Viking fans don't want to lose him, and a lot of these guys that I looked at, I checked Twitter just to see how the fan base feels about these players, because sometimes the stats don't tell the whole story. There's a lot of context in there that is sometimes missed with the stats. So, but everybody seemed to love Dalvin Tomlinson, and so that's a guy at $8.5 million. I might bring him in. He's only like 20. I think he's 28, and it's yeah, like, that would be a great. That's my number one that I would bring in. Now, you've got a few other ones in here, and I put stars next to their name on my list. Kalen Saunders for KC, and the reason why I put a star next to him is he's almost a DJ Jones clone. He's really short. He's 6 feet, 325. He's a little bit bigger than DJ was, but he's slated to only make $6.5 million. These are all per Spotrac, which I pretty much trust Spotrac usually for they're pretty accurate usually most of the time. But yeah, the only thing about Kalen Saunders is that I think the KC is going to re-sign him. It's between him and another guy on my list. If they don't re-sign him, I could see them bringing in the other guy that's a free agent for KC, which is Derek Nottie, who's 6'1", 317, and he is, realistically speaking, run stopping only. That is all he does, and he's not. I would say he's not as good as Kalen Saunders even at that. But he's on my radar just because he's going to be cheap. Like, they didn't even have a market value for him, which tells me he's probably going to be in that. He was slated below Kalen Saunders, so I'm thinking he's probably going to come in for that two or three mil a year deal, and that might be a guy for depth purposes behind Hassan Ridgeway. I could completely see it. I have another guy that I really like, Andrew Billings from the Raiders, 6'1", 328. If you can tell, there's a theme here. I'm liking these shorter, bigger guys that are really stout at the point of attack. And Andrew Billings is really good against the run. Really good against the run. And he actually does have a little bit of pass. He stays really low. A lot of the comments about him were how low he stays to the ground, and and what does that remind you of? Later on in DJ Jones' career with the 49ers, what I noticed the most about him was he's not so much a pass rush move guy as much as he just gets really low to the ground and just kind of knifes through. And that's the type of guy that Billings is. And from the highlights that I saw of him, that's he does that a lot. Like he kind of gets low to the ground and just kind of knifes through. I really like that, and he's really good against the run. He's a little athletic too, which I kind of like, which I felt like we could use. That was something that I was really disappointed with in Kinlaw. Like he just did not look athletic. Like he did not have good um like tracking ability. Like he just could not run guys down. And that's it was really weird to see because he was so athletic in it's he looked so athletic in college, but in the pros he looked like he was running in sand every time he would run. It's just really weird. But the oh he mentioned David Onyemata is who I want. Yeah, I looked at him and I did look at him, and he did not make my list because I feel like he's more of a pass rusher from the inside, and I really think what the 49ers are missing is that stout guy. They have guys like Kevin Gibbons and uh well, really Kevin Gibbons. Like they really have Kevin Gibbons, and they have their three technique in Eric Armstead, who are more pass rush friendly type of defensive tackles. Like what the 49ers really need is that guy that can get low to the ground, that can just upset the run game. And it might sound weird because the 49ers were the best team and best defense in the league against the run. But I think we saw in the NFC Championship game, maybe it's because they felt the pressure to play Kinlaw, but they did not. They were against bigger physical lines. They were getting pushed off the ball, like and not enough to for it to be a glaring issue, but it was enough for me to say, we could stand to make an improvement there. And I think that was the biggest issue about missing DJ Jones was a guy that was just a pardon the term, like, because I know you guys have heard it 100 times before, but he's like that fire hydrant that just stays in the middle there, and you're gonna have to go through him. Like so it's yeah. I like Andrew Billings from the Raiders. I really like that guy. Um, but yeah, I'm still stuck on Dalvin Tomlinson. I think Dalvin Tomlinson would be outstanding for the 49ers. And another guy and we've heard of this name before because a lot of people are saying because Steve Wilkes is here as our defensive coordinator. Now, Matt Ioannidis Nidis, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Matt Ioannidis, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Carolina, 6'3", 310. He's a guy that's another run stopper that can pass rush from time to time. He's he's on my lower scale of my star players, but I will tell you these last two that I have as my stars. Larry Ogunjobi out of Pittsburgh, 6'3", 305, and yeah, he's only 305. But and I think that the 49ers need a bigger body. I think that that's part of the problem. But Ogunjobi is a monster. And the Pittsburgh, what I really noticed from them is he's only commanding 3.5 mil, like as of right now, like Spotrak's saying. So because I think he's mainly a run stopper, but the Pittsburgh Steeler fans do not want to lose this guy, and they want to prioritize him. I don't know what that means. It might price him out of Pittsburgh. I would bring him in for 4 and see that and for a year and see what we could get out of him. I think that guy is capable to be a dynamic duo next to Eric Armstead. Just because their skill sets mesh together. So like it looks like it would be a marriage made in heaven. I think Ogunjobi is really athletic, and yes, he's 305, but he is really strong. It looks like he's just moving guys, and like that I that would be a huge pickup. I'm telling you right now, if the 49ers find a way to make that happen, that would be a huge pickup. That's right along there with Dalvin for me, Dalvin Tomlinson. But another guy I would not mind having is another guy I put a star next to is Puna Ford, and he comes from he's from the Seattle Seahawks, and but they have quite a few guys that they're going to have to re-sign. Puna Ford is only 5'11", but he's 310 pounds. I I'm 5'11", guys. Like I can't imagine being 310 pounds. And then it looks like he's going to command about 9.2 mil. Similar, very similar, real low to the ground guy. Obviously, he's only 5'11", but fire hydrant type of guy, but can pass rush, and it seems to find his way into the backfield. And he's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite. The fans don't want the Seattle fans do not want this guy to go, but they recognize that they have another guy over there, and I should have wrote down his name, but they have another guy that they're pretty sure that the Seahawks are going to keep over him. So Puna Ford might be available. I think he'll be available for somebody to poach. I think if somebody offered him 9 mil or 8 mil for that matter, I think that might get it done. So, and whoever gets him is going to get a really high motor player. So it's going to be, I think that's a really good pickup. And I've got a couple of other guys I want to mention. Raheem Nunez Roches from Tampa Bay, 6'2", 307, super athletic, and more of a run. It's weird because he's really athletic, but he's more of a run stopper, and but he's long, and like I think if Chris Kasser got his hands on him, he could turn him into a pass rusher. So that would be more of a potential thing. The Carl Davis out of New England. Now this one is a straight up depth piece. Like Carl Davis hasn't really done anything at anywhere, but he's been in the league for I think like 7 or 8 years. But he finally got to New England and made his way on special teams, and then found his way onto the. He's only gotten one sack the last 2 seasons, but but the fans think that he's a really good player. They wish that he would have played more. I think that he's one of those guys that just kind of sticks around teams, and with his play alone, he wasn't highly drafted, and he's an effort guy. I think that's a guy you could bring in for super cheap and give him a chance to play on a good team, and he could be one of those Kevin Givens type players. So that's another guy that I'm looking at. So those are my defensive tackles, and but if you take anything, the names that I really want you guys to pay attention to when free agency starts is Dalvin Tomlinson. Not so much Kalen Saunders because I think he's going to go back to KC, but Dalvin Tomlinson, Andrew Billings, and Larry Ogunjobi. Those are my big three, and I guarantee you. Well, I don't know what the other 49er content creators have said. Like I've been watching a lot of shows, but I haven't heard anybody mention those names. But I think that those are three guys that could flourish under Chris Kasurek. And I think that any one of those guys, if they made their way onto this 49er team, that their fan bases would be upset. Just like when Ray, I know everybody doesn't like Ray, but I like Ray. I think that and Pittsburgh fans were kind of upset that Ray was gone until they got Calvin Austin. But then Calvin Austin, I think that they wish they had Ray back right now. So, but I want to move on to defensive ends. because okay, yeah, we got to get moving to defensive ends. The real quick. So these came down to really three. I really had three guys for me because we got Jordan Willis, Kerry Hyder, Samson Ebicom that are free agents, right? I don't think that they bring Samson back. I don't think he showed enough over the last two seasons that would warrant them paying him $7 million a year, which is what he's slated to make. Kerry Hyder, I think, goes without saying. I think that they're going to bring him back just because he's a good depth piece. He can play inside, outside. Jordan Willis, another guy, good special teamer. I think that it's a no-brainer you bring him back. He's a good depth piece. Arden Key is an interesting one because, and you might recognize the name. He was on the 49ers just a year ago. He went to the Jags and had himself a season after going away from the 49ers, and he had a season for us. Like, he played really well for the 49ers. But now he's slated to make $11 million a year. So do the 49ers pay Arden Key? I don't think that they do, because you've got the second year man, Drake Jackson, waiting behind him. And we don't really know why per se. Well, I guess Shanny told us. Shanny told us that Damian says Ray is drop. I get it, but he's probably the best kick and punt returner we've had, even though he fumbled in the playoffs. Like, he's still the best punt returner and kick returner that we've had since in the Shanahan era, at least. So, yeah, it is what it is. Like, but I like Ray. I think there's unrealized potential there, and I think that he could be something if they find a way to get him. It's just so many weapons on the 49er team. It's really hard for them to get anybody else involved than they already have. He said, Damian said, would you bring back Solomon Thomas? Hell no. Hell no, I would not. Like, there's no reason. I don't. He's a tweener. They shouldn't have drafted him in the first place. He's going to be taking snaps away from somebody else that I think is. We know what Solomon Thomas is. He's a guy that I guess you could bring in on third down as like a pass rush specialist, but I don't want to see him back on the team. There's a reason why he left the 49ers, and now he went through two different teams, and now he's looking for another team. There's a reason. Like, the guy, it's unfortunate because, I mean, that was just a wasted I think he was second pick overall. Like, I mean, it's just terrible. But what's going on, East Coast? Appreciate you coming through. Like, make sure everybody goes and checks out East Coast Red and Gold podcast. They got a really good show. Yeah, and I did mention Arden Key, but he's slated to make like 11 mil, guys. Like, I don't see the 49ers dropping 11 mil on him. I think what's going to end up happening is that Drake Jackson is going to get a shot at it. I think that he's going to ball out in the offseason, and he's going to show Shanny and Steve Wilkes that he's ready and that he's ready to work hard. And I think that he's going to come out looking lean and mean come camp time. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think we're going to hear a lot of stuff out of camp saying how great he looks and all that kind of stuff. So, but I want to mention a couple of other guys. DeMarcus Walker out of off the Titans, 6'4", 280. He's slated to make 3.2 mil. He had 7 sacks this last season, and I'm wondering if he got a bunch in like a couple of games because of the way they've only got him slated for 3.2 million. But he's another guy. The fan base for the Titans, they're really torn between him and another player, but they think that the other player is going to be better. And like I said, I should have written. I only wrote down the guys that would be for the 49ers, but I wish I would have thought to mention those players. But that is a guy that I really like. I kind of watched some of the games to watch him play, and I like him. I think that he could be a really nice piece on the edge as a bigger end, and he can get you can kind of move him in and out like the 49ers do. Yeah, I think that that is a guy that could be that could flourish in the system with Chris Kasirk. Zach Allen, I think a lot of content creators have talked about him, 6'4", 281. He's going to command 9.4 million. So I look at DeMarcus Walker and I look at a guy that with the right coaching, the fact that Tennessee has a deep defensive line. So it was really hard for him to get playing time. I think that DeMarcus in the 49ers rotation could possibly flourish. But Zach Allen, I think that he's a beast. I really think that he do. I think that he didn't really get a chance to show everything that he could do on Arizona because they're Arizona. That that's the take. Like is that Arizona is Arizona, and they don't know how to use the guys they got. But another guy I'm looking at, my third star guy is Cleland. I don't know if it's Cleveland. It might be Cleveland. Cleveland Farrell, from another guy from the Raiders, 6'4", 265. Now this guy is a disappointment. He in key. And if anybody remembers Arden Key when the 49ers first picked him up, he was a disappointment on the Raiders that they thought was going to be really good, and he didn't turn out being good for them. But then he came to the 49ers, and we all know that story. Arden Key played great for the 49ers, and I think that Cleveland Farrell could be one of those guys. He's really young. He's only like 27. I think he's 27. He is, I mean, supreme athleticism. He's a first round pick. He was a first round pick, and I know I just talked a bunch of stuff about Solomon Thomas being a first round pick, but Cleveland Farrell, I think, has ability. I think that it's a coaching issue, and I think that it is a culture issue. I think if Cleveland, you put some of these guys in the 49er culture and the 49er coaching staff, and I think we watch them go to work. Like that's how I look at it. But yeah, Cleveland Farrell's another one. But some of my guys on the fringe, I just have a couple of guys on the fringe. I got Shaq Lawson from the Bills. He's available, 6'3", 270. That's a guy that to me, he underperformed for the Bills. But the Bills got a whole bunch of guys, and they have a whole bunch of guys that are the exact same player. So I think he got caught up in the mix in that, and I don't think we got to really see what he's capable of. But he's a guy that we could also maybe bring in and wouldn't break the bank. Like they don't have a market value for him or Cleveland Farrell out in Spotrac. So I think we're kind of wait and see. We're kind of wait and see mode as far as that goes. But and I'm sure we'll get some news coming down the pike like of what these guys are really looking for. But my last guy is Mario Edwards, another Tennessee guy, and he's a guy that is just underneath DeMarcus Walker. Like he's got athletic ability, he's just can't put it all together. Like and he would be my bargain. He's very similar to my take on Carl Davis. He's kind of a bargain basement. Let's see what we got, maybe just for depth purposes. But I didn't mention Ashawn Robinson from the Rams. Like now he had a few injury issues like everybody else on the Rams this last season, but I mean he's 6'4", 330, and he's commanding about 8 mil, and he played really well for the Rams. Now, with that being said, he's playing next to the best defensive tackle in maybe the history of the game in Aaron Donald. So I don't know what he would look like next to Eric Armstead, but not that Eric Armstead is anything to sneeze at, but he's not Aaron Donald. So I don't know what Ashawn Robinson would really look like in that regard, but I think he's going to command I think he's a really solid player. And that might be another guy that you bring if you can get him for cheaper than 8 million. I wouldn't pay 8 million, but let's see what we can get. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I am about to get out of here. But I did want to go over the trenches with you guys, like, because they're gonna need to fortify this defensive line. I don't think that they can go in there with the same group of guys and think that they're going to get different results. That they took a pretty big step back as far as sacks go this season, and it and they were still one of the better teams in sacks, but that was because of Bosa. I mean, Bosa cannot do all of it by himself. Eric Armstead really didn't help him in that regard this season. The pass rush just they were a step slower. It was noticeable that they were just a step slower this season. And I really think that this defensive line could really use an influx of athleticism and some speed, like off the edge. So not some of the guys that I mentioned, they may not be the fastest guys on the planet, but they do have that twitch factor, and I do take that into account when I'm looking at guys. You can have the twitch factor and not be the fastest guy. Drake Jackson, I don't think is supremely fast. I think that he just has a whole lot of twitch, and he has a really good reaction. And I think a lot of the guys I mentioned have that same attribute. So, um, oh, Damien says Kinlaw and McGlinchey can sit next to each other on the bus to leave. Absolutely. Well, I say that about McGlinchey because I feel like McGlinchey has had more time. Like he's had more time to correct some of his issues. With Kinlaw, it's just a health issue. And I really feel bad for Kinlaw because I feel like he wants to work. He just can't stay healthy. And McGlinchey, I feel like, had to be shamed into working on his game. Like, I mean, his Joe Staley had to come out and shame McGlinchey to get him to work harder. And to me, that's not somebody I want on the team. In my personal opinion. So I know that he's the best option out there as far as free agency goes, but I would still take a flyer on somebody else. And there's other options out there. If you want to go in-house, I could see it. The draft is there. There's some guys in the draft that were just starting to scrape the surface with that. I think Brad mentioned a guy from Old Dominion today that I think that they're talking about grooming for. He's talking about grooming for center. But regardless, there's a bunch of guys out there. You don't know what you got until we get into OTAs in camp. We just don't. So, but I appreciate all you guys for coming in tonight. Please make sure that you remember that you can get this on YouTube. You can get it on Twitter. You can get it on Facebook. You can get anywhere where you can get your audio podcasts. If you don't want to look at this this face, get it on the audio podcast. I don't care where you get it, just get it. But remember to tell a friend so that we can be friends every day, every week. And with that being said, I'm going to get out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow. I believe I'm going to have a guest. You'll have to wait and see who that is. But as always, I like to get out of here with just a quick Go Niners.